So good morning, everybody. This is your next episode, the next edition of Hump Day Live, the weekly show here on Fitness Jones Training. Just to get you over the hump, about a month ago, I asked folks if I was going to do a weekly broadcast for information, motivation to keep you going on your way, maybe a little news you can use. Would they like to have it done on a Monday to get the week started, on a Wednesday to get you over the hump of the midweek? And overwhelmingly, the vote was do it on Wednesday. I might need a little push to get over the week. So it's about 8:35 a.m. here in lovely Charlotte, North Carolina. I've got 15 minutes of news, tips, and a little me to you time. So let's get into it. Let's start with the news because this is one of the most interesting things I've seen in terms of studies. And a lot of this research came out in 2023. And the research is surrounding women who self-silence. And if you don't know what that means to self-silence, fundamentally it means women who are experiencing conflict with people around them and their tendency to bite down really hard on their tongue and not express themselves. And it turns out that type of behavior, which has been highly encouraged through places like church bodies, raising and rearing women to be ladylike and demure, maybe even those classical girl training, those women's training protocols. You balance the books on your head, always be a lady, be seen but not heard. That's actually deadly for women, it turns out. I'm going to read some of the news around this, and I want you to let me know after you see this what you think about this information and how you might decide to change your behaviors. But fundamentally, in March of 2022, a team of researchers at the University of Pittsburgh discovered that women of color, specifically in this case, who strongly agreed with statements like, "I rarely express my anger to those who are close to me," were 70% more likely to experience increased carotid atherosclerosis. What that means is, that's a mouthful, what that means is hardening of the arteries, the carotid arteries specifically. Cardiovascular plaque associated with higher risk of heart disease was more prevalent. Other studies have connected self-silencing to things as simple as irritable bowel system, or as things as symptomatic as chronic fatigue, or even cancer among women. That's right, y'all. The fact that they are self-silencing is making their bodies more prone to disease. They're not expressing themselves. In one study, researchers found nearly 4,000 people in Framingham, Massachusetts over 10 years. They followed people for 10 years. They found that women who didn't express themselves when they had discourse, when they had disagreements with their spouses, are 4 times more likely to die early than those who did. This was true even when factors like age, blood pressure, smoking, and levels of cholesterol were taken into account. When women push their feelings down and they cast their own self-needs aside, their health suffers. But it can be difficult for women to do otherwise in a culture that celebrates sort of self-silencing practices, right? While young women are praised for being chill, moms are revered for being painstakingly altruistic. They're always looking out for someone else first, to the point of self-abnegation. So moms are so centered on everybody around them that they are neglecting themselves to death. They're neglecting themselves to death. Take your mom to lunch or something today, by the way, after you hear this. But these unspoken standards, what they do is they establish a vicious cycle. For many women, it feels easier, maybe even beneficial, to silence their needs at the expense of their own health, rather than swim against the prevailing cultural current of, again, being seen but not heard. That's a shocking discovery that this particular study showed that when women self-silence, when they don't express themselves, when they're having conflict with people around them, when they're moms and they are all about their children, and you should be, but to the point of self-neglect, the rate of death increases. I never heard any research like that before. And I'm wondering, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about the fact that the way that you handle conflict around you and within you, and your ability to express yourself or lack of ability to express yourself through scientific research has shown to be something that could shorten your life? Do a lot of you out there feel like you may make some changes in how you set boundaries? Do a lot of you out there feel like you may need to redefine some relationships? Maybe you need to have a talk with your spouse, significant other, or partner. I think that this type of information warrants a little shift in what you do. Now that we got the news out of the way, trucking right along, let's get to the tip of the day. The tip of the day is the volume method. It's something that I work with when I'm working with my clients, specifically those type A, hard charging personalities who find themselves in the all or nothing bracket of life. A lot of the time when we have difficulty and it's mixed with the course of our wellness practices, our nutrition practices, our exercise practices, we'll see people fall far off that proverbial wagon, right? It's not something that's unusual in the context of being a fitness coach or a fitness trainer, and it's not something unusual for those of you out there who've tried to make long-lasting change in your program. And I understand that most people see their fitness and wellness practices as an on-off switch, right? What the volume method encourages you to do is look at it more like a volume dial than an on-off switch. I remember having parties, house parties in the 90s. Yeah, that was a real thing if you're young and you've seen the movie. I remember having house parties in the 90s, and maybe we're in an apartment and somebody calls the police or the sheriff. Everybody goes to hide in different places in the apartment when one person opens the door, and you turn the music down so you're listening to it quietly instead of turning it completely off, because that's much more likely to be the case that you were actually listening to music than it is the case that you were sitting as a 20-something, you were sitting quietly in your apartment on a Friday or Saturday night. I encourage you to do the same thing with your wellness. Difficulty is going to come up. You're going to have some problems. Like it's just going to be a thing. You're never going to go through a transformative process for your health in a vacuum, in an environment that's completely. This is the biggest loser, y'all. Have those instances. Use the volume method, and all that means is maybe at that particular time in your wellness protocol, in your workout, in your nutrition, maybe you can't operate as a 10, right? But instead of turning everything off because things around you are challenging, there are difficult circumstances popping up in your life, you've got emergency situations, instead of turning it off, turn the 10 down to a 2 or 3. What does that look like in practice, Ren? You speak English to me. What that means is if you're working out 3 times a week and you're strength training 3 times a week, you're doing a cardiovascular conditioning 2 times a week. Maybe you turn it down to 1 strength training session and 1 cardiovascular conditioning session. You just turn the volume down, because ultimately one of the biggest things that you want to be able to do, you want to be able to connect 1 week to the next week of having something done, right? We go from all or nothing to always something via the volume method. That could look like you're strength training for hour-long sessions. You've got a busy week, and instead of doing that, you're strength training for 15-minute sessions. You're chopping up your strength training maybe into fitness snacks, right? You've turned the volume down a little bit. You haven't turned it off because there's difficulty or something's going on in your wellness protocol. You just turn the volume down a little bit. Learn to find the in-between places in your wellness practices. Oftentimes we look at it as absolutely black or absolutely white, and that doesn't give us the shades, the 50 shades of gray that are in between. And I think a good coach introduces you to all of those gray areas that give you a wider selection of things that you can try, so that when you get into situations where you can't operate all the way on the 100% extreme, and you know you don't want to be all the way over on the 0% extreme, you can do something. You're able to learn what financial analysts have known for decades, which is every deposit into an interest-bearing account, every deposit compounds in interest, except for a 0 deposit. So find a way to do something, use that volume method, And instead of thinking I need to turn my fitness off when difficulty arises, because it will arise, think I need to turn the volume down on my fitness for this little period of time. I'm going to set my BAMs, my BAMs, my bare ass minimums, and that's how I'm going to operate until I can turn the volume back up. That's your tip of the day. We're going to round out this hump day live the same way we always do, a little me to you. This is the portion where I just want to share with you a thought process, a way of being, maybe a quote that might set you on a different trajectory. And today I want to talk about change, right? We have to understand that as you make an attempt to become the most authentic version of yourself, you always have to keep in mind that there will be people around you who want the version of you that makes them the most comfortable. Disregard that. Change anyway. That's our Hump Day Live. Thank you for hanging out with me. Ren Jones. I'll be back next Wednesday at 8:30, 8:35 a.m. Eastern for another Hump Day Live. We'll give you a little bit of news. We'll give you a little bit of tips. And we'll give you a little bit of from me to you to help you sort of reset your thought process as you take your wellness journey. Until next time, next Wednesday, let's keep it simple. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Until next Wednesday, let's keep it simple.